Hello and welcome to Sharon Local History. In this video, I will tell you and show some pictures about ice industry. I will talk about ice harvesting and trading from New England, and then we will concentrate on Sharon. I just want to let you know that I'm using lots of stock images that are from New England, are from ice industry, but not all of them are from Sharon. If they are from Sharon, there will be a little label saying so. Ice harvesting as an industry started in the beginning of 19th century. It involved the large-scale harvesting, transport and sale of natural ice for domestic consumption and commercial purposes. Ice was cut from the surface of ponds and streams. It was then stored in ice houses before being sent by ship or railroad to its final destination around the world. Networks of ice wagons were typically used to distribute the product to the final domestic and smaller commercial customers. The ice trade revolutionized the U.S. meat, vegetable, and fruit industries, enabled significant growth in the fishing industry, and encouraged the introduction of a range of new drinks and food. So in 1805, England businessman Frederick Tudor, he saw the opportunity and he realized that he can get free ice from Massachusetts ponds, harvest it and transport it and sell it to customers. And I have to admit that from my reading, I did realize that it wasn't actually his idea, but his brother's. But he took it on and he definitely made it a very successful business. He shipped ice to Caribbean island of Martinique, hoping to sell it to wealthy members of European elite. He basically met rich people first and he made them hooked on ice. He gave them ice for free. They enjoyed very cold drinks and eventually they paid him for ice and he built his wealth on it. His adventure wasn't all that easy. He had to deal with some setbacks, but eventually he made his business very profitable and he was one of the richest men in New England. He actually built a house next to Beacon Hill. Over the coming years, the trade widened to southern United States. There were other merchants that joined Tudor in harvesting. You can say that there were many copycats, and they were shipping ice from New England. During the 1830s and 1840s, the ice trade expanded further, with shipments going as far as India. It is important to mention that even though making the ice was free, because it's a natural ice from local ponds, it was very time-consuming job. There was lots of competition and it was incredibly dangerous. You can also imagine that there were many setbacks when it comes to weather, melting of the ice. The ice had to be packed in sawdust. By the way, each of those blocks was about 300 pounds. At one point, people actually said that it's national pride of America to have ice cold drink in the summer. Tudor's business really increased in 1825 after he teamed up with Nathaniel Wyeth, hotel owner and mechanical tinker. Until Tudor met Wyeth, the harvesting of ice was an extremely labor-intensive endeavor that involved drilling holes in close proximity and then using large steel poles as wedges to break off large, irregularly shaped chunks of ice. Wyeth came up with an ice plow modified from its standard farm plow to be weighted down and pulled by horses to create deep, straight indentations in one direction and then cutting across the first lines at 90 degrees to create marked blocks of ice. The process would be repeated several times until a deep groove was created that allowed the easy separation via wedges of even uniform size blocks of ice. The new process not only cut down on time and thus harvesting labor cost, but increased the amount of ice that could have been stored in an ice house while the even-edged blocks significantly slow down the melting process. Tudor first sold his ice to scientists and physicians in the tropics who saw its potential for preserving food and for medical uses. He later expanded the market to cafes and wealthy private households for chilling drinks. Tudor at first gave away his ice for free, then charged once people were hooked. After people tried their drinks cold, they could never be presented with them warm again, Tudor wrote. He created a worldwide demand for cold drinks, which is now the standard in so many countries. So now let's talk about Sharon. If you ever walk by our lake, Lake Massachusetts, in wintertime, you probably feel like, brr, it's cold. I really don't want to fall in. But about 100 years ago, Sharonites at that time, they felt that the frozen wetland is actually an opportunity, economic opportunity, and they decided to harvest the ice from the lake. So here in Sharon, we had few companies that built ice houses and they harvested ice. The Boston Ice House was formerly Burkhardt's. It was located on where Livingston Road and Sturgis Road is now. The railroad track ran off the main line, which was very convenient. By the way, this ice house was 300 feet long, 150 deep, and 50 high. The enclosed incline was about 200 feet long. I also want to mention that, and we can still see the train tracks. So where the arrow is pointing, that's where the train tracks were. The Brimers Ice House was located on land at the intersection where Beach, Cedar, and Gunhouse Streets meet. It was actually inside where the fence is now, so kind of part of the beach. The third ice house that we know of, the Tallman Brothers Ice House, was where the small path goes from the back of community center towards Camp Gannett, or Everwood Camp. By the way, Tallman actually delivered ice to people who still had ice boxes in 1930s and 1940s. I will throw in a little fun fact. Clifford Tallman and his two brothers who founded the Tallman Ice Company, he was actually born in Windsor, Nova Scotia, and Windsor in Nova Scotia, Canada is considered a birthplace of ice hockey. And the sanatorium on Everett Road had their own private ice house. It was close to the pond, which is not there anymore, it dried out. But it was a cute little pond where kids used to skate and play hockey, and that's where the ice house was. So the ice industry was a pretty big deal in Sharon. Many men were actually employed from about December 21st to April. And around 1923, it was found to be more economical to manufacture ice in Boston, and the operation was shut down. Building wreckers came in around 1926 and they removed all of the iron, and one night the rest of it burned. This was the most spectacular fire that could be imagined. It was a mass of flames when the fire was discovered. The heat generated by the wooden building, plus the sawdust in the walls, was indescribable. It was impossible to get within 300 feet of the building because of the heat, especially when the fire burned a hole in the wall, allowing the sawdust to pour out and create firefall that, by the time it reached the ground, would be ashes. The members of the fire department could not get near enough to fight the fire and limited themselves to containing it. The fire burned all night and part of the next day, and so the Boston Ice House went out in the blaze of glory. So this was lots of information about ice industry in Sharon, and I am not done yet. So keep your eyes open for part 2. Thank you for watching Sharon Local History.